to make sure?
Hello, Pламен.
Yes, okay, it works. Hello, Jeff. We just commented that you are at the moment in Canada, in Vancouver area, and it's 10 hours difference for you. It's in the morning. For us, it's like 7:40 p.m. already.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Good to see you. Been a while.
It is. It's been a while indeed. And actually, for the other people who like are watching this live or are gonna watch the recording later in the evening or tomorrow morning, a lot of them would have seen you in person on the conference, which was when you think about it, just over a year ago. Because now it's 24th and it was on the 15th of October.
Yeah. That was an amazing trip. That was such a great trip, both the conference and the trip afterwards. I loved Bulgaria.
I did mention to you a few things before we started. One of them actually, though, that I forgot to mention was like I told you that we are going 10 people in El Salvador, but one of the things that I would like to do there is get the contacts of as many of the lecturers there and just ask them, would you come to Bulgaria next year if you're coming to one of the conferences in Europe and so on, and just like get contacts. With the idea this year, for personal reasons, I had to skip all conferences. Like I didn't go to any, I didn't make one in Bulgaria. I just focused on personal stuff that we talked about. However, though, next year I definitely want to do a conference in Bulgaria again.
Nice. Are you going to go to Bitcoin Atlantis in Madeira?
When is it?
That's March 1st to 3rd, and I'm helping organize some of it, but I would highly recommend you go.
Okay.
It's gonna be a really, really good one.
Okay. Adding it to my calendar then. Yes. Okay. Again, this year I just skipped everything. There was really good conferences in Amsterdam, in Lugano, and so on. But I just skipped them all because I wanted to focus on health and just like personal stuff. But next year, once this is all settled down and behind me, I'll again just focus on trying to just be part of the community as much as possible. And earlier I just mentioned I'm really extremely happy with the Bulgarian Bitcoin community because when the conference was, like, Bitcoin already was in a bear market, right? Because it was October, and the all-time high was like the November last year, the year before that or whatever. And now, which is like a year later, it's extremely active community. Like, we do these meetups every single time. It's at least 15-20 people. We just literally went to the mountains like 2 weeks ago together, and again, a lot of the cities are active. And 3 days ago I was on this meetup that was merchants oriented, focused, which means it's about merchants who would like to accept Bitcoin, the benefits of it, the different legal and accounting issues that you have to solve, how to custody, where to custody it, or how to keep it on your own keys, but at the same time be legal in order to be able to report to the national how's it called, the IRS equivalent in Bulgaria, and so on. And there was 30 people, maybe 40 people, again, all of them merchants, either already accepting Bitcoin or who want to accept Bitcoin.
Yeah, bear markets are for builders, and when you see you and maybe some of the community that's around you sees what's happening, the rate of growth in this network is so staggering. Not just, and people are measuring the price of it instead of the rate of growth and what's happening, and eventually everybody's going to see how seamless this is and how interconnected it is, and why would a vendor take fiat money when they pay fees on fiat money. I'll give you an example. Breeze in their model, by giving a non-custodial wallet and vendor solution, or Lightning, and a non-custodial way, can share fees, right? So instead of paying 2.5% or 5% to Visa as a vendor and taking money that's devaluing in price and value each year, you're getting paid to activate into the Bitcoin network. The incentives are so powerful that there's just no way that this doesn't accelerate really fast around the world. It's just such a powerful protocol, and and now what's being built on top in layer 2 and 3. It's just incredible to watch. So we've been, I've been very involved. In fact, why we created the fund, the event Ego Death Capital, is to invest in those entrepreneurs, because we realized that some of the technology on top wasn't seamless enough. It was still too hard for people to understand, so it was lots of training involved. And then as that becomes easier and easier, and entrepreneurs build valuable solutions on top to be able to allow other people to understand how easy this is, it just accelerates. So we're in the early innings. I mean, Bitcoin is in the early innings of understanding that, but it's so profound. And it's awesome that you and people like you, kind of in Bulgaria and all around the world, have been kind of leaders in pushing that inside of these other regions, so people in other countries can see how fast this is moving. But all of the people around Bitcoin, that's what they're experiencing. That's why when they look out at the rest of the world and they say how much pain is going through because of this fiat mentality, they're living in a different, or they're already living in the future, right? They're already living in a world that's they can see, you can see, I can see what ends up happening on these new rails, and it's really profound.
It's been a year since been to Bulgaria, and in this year happened so much. We talked about, you just mentioned how Bitcoin is such a profound change in general for settlement layers. One of the examples I started giving is like, I ask people, what is the easiest way to send money today from a person in Bulgaria who is Bulgarian citizen to American citizen or Canadian citizen? And in Bulgaria, there is this application called Revolut, which I think is the equivalent of Cash App
I know it.
Or Venmo in the States. But the thing is, Cash App is closed. It's just the people in Cash App. Venmo also. If you want to send to someone else, then you need the IBAN in Bulgarian. I don't know how it is in wire number, whatever it's called in the US.
It's the same. Yeah.
Okay. And my point is that I now ask the people like, okay, if you want to send money from Bulgaria to the States from a citizen a US citizen who doesn't have therefore Revolut, and Bulgarian citizen who cannot have Cash App or Venmo, what's the quickest way to send? And people start stuttering, like they're not sure. Okay, what do you do? And to me, the correct answer is, let's say, Western Union or MoneyGram. But the taxes there are crazy, because if I do a bank transfer, it will be lower fees, but it's going to be much slower than, let's say, with the Western Union. But again, it shows the problem. Either you want it quick with extremely high fees, or you want it a bit slower with lower fees, but still the Bulgarian banks at least really crush you on the exchange rate. So Bitcoin is, as a settlement layer, completely like destroys this whole high fee, extremely slow legacy international banking system.
Yeah, completely. Completely. And just and for people who don't yet know what this question, when in history has something that is far cheaper, far less expensive, safer, more secure, ever lost to something that is higher cost, centralized, and less secure? And never in history has something that is that much value ever lost to people, because people find that value. And so what you're saying right now when you talk about Revolut or Cash or some of the other solutions or banking solutions, you're talking about the high cost model that most people in the world don't know that there's an alternative. Right, and that alternative is really, really early, and that's why change always happens. It takes a while to be able to change, because most people are still stuck in the old world, and they think, okay, if I move money to someone else in another country, then I have to go to the bank and do this. They don't realize how simple this already is, and it's getting easier and easier. And as more people are transacting at it, essentially it's an early network effect. And a network effect, you know this, but maybe some of your people, some of the listeners don't. But a network effect is defined by each new person that you add to the network makes the overall network stronger. So a phone system, if I'm the only one with a phone, it has zero value. If you and I both have phones, it has value for both of us. If a third person, we all increase our value. So the definition of a network effect is every single node that you add to it makes the network stronger. Now, why that rate of growth is important is it's not just how simple it is, but every person who understands how simple it is makes the network stronger for every other person in the network. And that's why this is exploding. And the US dollar, which used to have a strong network effect, is going the other way because every person that's using it is getting weaker. And so what you have is early in a transition that we all can see this. So why I say I'm in a privileged seat is I'm sitting at the front edge of that network effect, and I can see these people all over the world, and I can see the businesses that they're creating all over the world, that every single node is making that stronger and stronger for every other person. And so it's exactly like the internet. Well, it's actually probably more powerful than the internet. What's happening here is you have a new global internet, a new peer-to-peer internet, tied to money, tied to energy, that can't be fucked with, right? There's nothing that can stop it. And there's nothing that can stop it. Now, people will try because there's so much power in the existing legacy system that just like you see all the news, everything else that's saying, okay, we're gonna stop it. There's no way to stop it. There's literally no way to stop a network effect that gives that much value to people, that every new person on that network increases the value for all people in the network. It's I'm not saying any given month, week, anything else, that there won't be fights, there won't be people talking about this all the time. It's impossible not to talk about because it's so profound. And as people understand it, it just keeps on making it stronger. It's really powerful.
I told you about the meetup of vendors that we had. There was a representative of Breeze.
Yep.
And he, just showed the POS functionality that they added, and talked about why and how does Breeze work, and how it creates new channels on the fly with your private key that is never shared with them, and so on. And also just what is it, like 2 weeks ago was another meetup. I told you how many meetups we're having of Bitcoiners in Bulgaria. Yeah. So another meetup in Plovdiv where Georgi Manov, pretty much just that was the date of the release of the Price of Tomorrow in Bulgarian language. He brought a bunch of books. Of course, sold all of them. I got 3 copies, one for my father, one for myself, and one as a gift. And yeah, just listening to you talking about the network effect, it reminded me of the book, because in the book in general, you talk about how technology, creates deflation, and where is this deflation going at. And just for the past I don't know, let's say 6 months, I started thinking more and more about that, like how people are definitely feeling like the gap between the rich and the poor is just widening, and everyone just feels it and thinks about it. And there is this viral TikTok or whatever from one US lady where she says like there used to be like lower class, middle class, upper class, and now it's just the extremely wealthy and everyone else who is poor. And the way I see it and the way I understand it is literally is just I don't know if you call it a side effect or just by design of how the current monetary system works, with the way that when you take, let's say, a mortgage, this money that comes in your bank account, let's say 100,000 euros or 200,000 euros, whatever, this money is not taken from depositors. So it's not like if I have 10k deposited in a bank and tomorrow I'm gonna see 8k because we lended the other 2k to someone else. What's happening is depositors are whole, and you just added new money to the system. And the way I see it is that the more assets you have, the more business oriented you are, the more just like, you know, like property you have or whatever, the easier access you have to credit and cheaper credit, because the more collateral you have, the lower interest rate you're gonna get. And it just seems that over time, like it's not like, you know, like there are good people or bad people, like when you take a credit you're a bad person or whatever. No, just the system skews things around and makes people who don't take credits always like you know, like drop out, and the people who are on top and have access to a lot of cheap credit just use the system in their advantage. Would you agree with this, Bill?
Yeah, so let me simplify it for your audience, because it's actually really quite simple. Okay. Two things are true right now. One thing, we live in a system with over $400 trillion of insolvent debt, right? So this, what I just said, is a fact, right? And that's not unfunded liabilities. That's not pensions that can't be paid back. It's just the debt, global debt, about $400 trillion. That debt is already insolvent. If you tried to pay back that debt at $1 a second, it would take 12,683,000 years to pay back that debt. $1 a second. The debt is already insolvent. And your audience needs to say that over and over and over and over again. The entire system I live in is insolvent. And meaning, if you allowed deflation, if you let the free market work from that system, then prices would fall, because technology is supposed to be able to drive the productivity to you, right? So the savings should, anything that, all productivity should be flowing to society in the form of lower prices. But if that system allowed that to happen, the debt would get more expensive, because you would have less money to pay back the debt. So it would get more expensive faster. So what that means from the existing system that has to debase your currency to pay back that debt, because it can't be paid back. Essentially, it has to lock you in to that system and run financial repression and steal this. And inflation is wage deflation. So what ends up happening is people try to they store their wealth in things like houses, because those don't lose as money as fast, right? They still lose money in that system, but they don't lose as fast as other things. So they store and then because now housing isn't a utility anymore, it's a store of value, house prices scream higher. And then a whole bunch of people, because inflation is wage deflation, a whole bunch of people now can't afford to even rent the houses, and they're getting their pocket picked. And that's what drives the divide of society. So we live in that system. Now I'm going to change gears for a second and talk about the system that I talked about in my book. Now, in economics, prices fall to the marginal cost of production. It is a law. No matter what, prices fall to the marginal cost of production. So it's why your calculator app on your phone is free today. Because what is the marginal cost of production of a line of code? 0. What's the marginal cost of production of a line of code created by other lines of code? 0. And so what ends up happening is, as these fall in price and they go to 0, same as your photos today, same as your calculator app, same as the call we're on right now, right? We can touch way more people, millions of people all around the world from this call that now costs 0. So that productivity it keeps on falling to 0. And there's less and less things in the economy that the government is trying to push up by manipulating money. So what I would say, every time, so the cause of the rise of the debt and the cause of the manipulation of the money is living in a system that tries to make prices rise unnaturally against what we should live in, prices falling. And prices should fall forever. Every year you should get more for less. Every year, everybody on this planet should get more for less, because that's what, if you just said prices fall the marginal cost of production, we have exponentially increasing productivity. That means you should ask yourself, why am I not getting more for less every year? Everyone on the planet. And what's happening is, the only way that could happen, because we live in this system and we measure everything from the system that's being manipulated, instead of from the new system. So in Bitcoin, because it's 21 million hard cap, and because it's decentralized and secure and nobody can change the rules, what it means is it's measuring, the 21 million hard cap is measuring prices falling forever. So anybody living in Bitcoin, if you're measuring the world from Bitcoin, I'll give you a perfect example in my house. My lake house cost $1.4 million almost 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago.
Let me guess, now it's like 3 to 5 million.
So yeah, but 1.4 million.
Yeah.
And it costs 300 Bitcoin at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Today, my lake house costs 2 million.
Okay.
2.1 million, something like that.
Okay.
And so I think it's going up, but it costs 40 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so what you can see is if I measure in a currency that can't be manipulated, all prices are falling forever.
Yeah.
But most people are measuring Bitcoin, its price going up from the system that's being manipulated instead of the other way around. And it's just what I'd say, it's imposing economic law on the world, and there's nothing that can change it. It doesn't care. It doesn't care what you think about it. It could care less. It's pricing physics. It's pricing economic law, and it's backed by energy. So if it stays decentralized and secure, it is inevitable that it reprices. Get what I just said, because they're measuring from a world that's driven financially, which is trying to financially repress them, to steal their wages, to steal their earnings. So what happens next out of that system? So out of that system, you have to imagine nobody would live there if they knew they had a choice. And they have a choice. They can just walk across and stop paying for $400 trillion of insolvent debt tomorrow, because Bitcoin's an open network. So everybody on the planet has a choice. And so what governments have to do increasingly is remove your individual rights and freedoms. And they have to drive coercion, and they have to drive bigger narratives like you should go to war against this other person, because they have to lock you in to be, through fear, to be able to stay stuck in a system that's hurting you so badly. Now, and most people, I wish that this wasn't true, but a lot of people will stay stuck in that system when there's just they just walk across the bridge to the new world, and do not have any financial repression anymore. And what you're doing in Bulgaria, and what people are doing all over the world, is teaching people how easy it is to walk across the bridge and see abundance, and see a totally different, beautiful world that's emerging from this darkness.
It is really hard. I agree with your statement that a lot of people are not gonna do the walk over the bridge, and I try to find new ways to explain what you explained about how every single year with innovations things should just get cheaper. I was like, let's say you do some innovation, and in order to be innovation, either it needs to have require less time to achieve something, or a less commodity, let's say wood or whatever, to achieve it, or less energy spent in order to make the same product. If you change something and now it costs more, like no, keep your innovation, do it the old way, right? Because like that's step backwards. Like it doesn't help me at all.
No one would use it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So if you build something that's more expensive, that has no value, no one would use it.
Yes.
So it should be completely obvious.
Yes.
The technology reduces prices.
Yes. So
what's not obvious though, Plamon, is people think it's only in technology products like the ones we just talked about. They don't think it's in housing. They don't think it. A Sears Roebuck house, 2,500 square foot house, something like that, in 1915, something like that. You could buy it on a catalog, and they would ship it to you, and you would build it. All of the parts for a house in the U.S. $2,500. All of the wood, all of the supplies, beautiful mansions type of beautiful. You would have to assemble it. $2,500. Have we found technology to build to distribute lumber better? cut down trees better? Have we found a technology to create all of these things better than $2,500? Yes, all of these things are automated too. They should be way less than $2,500. And today, if you tried to buy that same lumber package, for the same size of house, nothing else, just the lumber, would cost you about $60,000. So you can tell the only reason that price hasn't gone down, and that's in the US. Most currencies are way worse than that, right? So most currencies are pegged against the US, and they're failing way faster than that. So in Bulgaria, what your people are going through, it's way worse than that.
I just wanted to say that I put so much effort in trying to find as simple as possible ways to explain that the way that the current monetary system works is working against you. With CBDCs, more and more loss of privacy is coming, and much worse, just complete totalitarianism, whatever the word is in English. Yeah. It's a mouthful, and just a lot of people are with this either Stockholm syndrome or just like no, I'm born like this and it's gonna be forever like this. Anyway, my point is like, yes, some people definitely see the light and definitely change their views and learn, but there is still a lot of people that are just too afraid or just too stubborn to make the jump. But I guess it doesn't matter, like once we get critical mass, it's good enough, and sooner or later everyone else is going to do it out of his own personal self-interest. And what you said about the different currencies, I opened it because earlier we talked about the US dollar and how it's one of the the currencies with the high network effect and so on. And just in the past few days, someone apparently tweeted, and other people started tweeting this about the Bitcoin price in US dollars and in Canadian dollars. And when Bitcoin was at all-time high at 69 US dollars, it was 83.5 Canadian dollars. But now if Bitcoin goes to 69,000 US dollars, it will go to 94,000 Canadian dollars, and which again just shows how against the dollar, the Canadian dollar debased a lot
further,
and yes, further, and the US dollar, of course, also debased against the prices in the different stores and against houses and so on.
Yeah, that's it, and that's it. And that's why it's just way easier. It's easy for you and understand. I find the simplest way to insolvent debt. It's insolvent, right? And so how are you to pay back out of your wages for system look like?
Jeff, hello. It's my моя вината, такова. Смених интернета, защото очевидно беше зле интернета и от Wi-Fi и в момента смених на Hotspot. Обаче Hotspot-а... Hello?
Fall because a whole bunch of their beliefs are inside that system, stronger all the time. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I just refreshed because I switched to my mobile phone's hotspot just to make sure is it on my end the connectivity issues. Yep. So please continue with your thought. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just what I was saying is I find it easier to first understand, if people at a first principles understand, okay, the 400 pay that back. And so when people understand, okay, no, there is no way to pay that back, it means that there has to be forever to pay that back. Once they understand that, they can start to understand all of the other other second, third order consequences of that. So because that is true, right? Like, so I just, what's true, that's true. And so frames of the world, right? And your frame will determine your reality. If you believe it's okay to steal from people and government can control that and do that, and that's okay in the world, then you will give that system more power, right? If you believe you're a victim in that and you have no choice, that you will give that system more power and they'll strengthen for you, and you'll be scared because other things will happen, like what you said about control, about CBDCs. Other things from that system are just natural. It's inevitable from that system what it looks like. And if you believe you can do something about it, or if you're curious to why does the system look like that, it might not be bad people. It is, why does the system look like that? Why does it carry on like that? Could Bitcoin be the bedrock of that new solution? And so I know a whole bunch of people that you're listening to your podcast, new people coming in. One of the things I find with Bitcoin is once you understand this and how profound it is, then most people talk like everybody should know it. But it's such a complicated story, and it's such a complicated story really because of what I'm about to say. We measure a system from the system. Right? When the stars in the sky with a big enough telescope can realize the Earth doesn't, Copernicus was right. Most people, if you look at the people that didn't have a telescope like that, and they were looking normal for them to say, no, the church says it's the other way around.
Yeah.
It would have been totally normal because they were looking at the system from the system. And so it's totally normal when people are measuring their house values and everything else and their relationships and government and what the government should do from the system that is manipulating money. It's totally normal that they would see the same things. And what Bitcoin is it has zero counterparty risk to that system. It's outside that system. All it is an honest ledger, an honest, open, decentralized, and secure ledger. And it literally doesn't care what that system thinks of it. It's and so other than the other way around. You realize you're outside of that system. But when you're talking to people, most people are still stuck in that system. So they're making decisions, all of their decisions. They're dragging all of the baggage from that way that system operates into what a new system could. So that what would you do? What would you do from that system? Oh, government will kill it. Oh, it's gonna concentrate against a whole bunch of people. Oh, it'll look like the same. Oh, it's just it's just a whole bunch of people trying to get rich. All of these natural assumptions would be the first thing people looked at it from their point of view from within this different system. So when I look at all of these things and when I look at how that would look, I totally get it. It's human nature. And so how do you, and I think you do a really good job of this, Pламен, how do you break people out of their paradigm? By meeting them where they are, not where you are. How do you allow them to look through the telescope?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
And how and so they can see for themselves.
Yeah.
That when they don't have right now, they don't have a telescope. They're looking up at the night sky. That's literally what's happening.
Yeah. Again, I think it comes to this, that when you're born in a certain world, in a certain life, and people, let's say your parents lived in it, and you're raised in a certain way, you're with the perception that this is going to continue forever. And just recently, Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell both said they've been asked, can we actually support another war, a second one, and send billions of dollars there? And both of them said, yes, we definitely can do that. And I think actually it was President Biden said, like, come on, we are the United States of America. And someone said, like, this is exactly what the Roman Empire was thinking at their peak just before the starting going down, right? They were like, come on, we're the Roman Empire, of course we can do anything.
Yeah, so for me, I give none of that any strength at all in my mind anymore.
Yeah,
like none. I don't even listen. I smile sometimes at it, but I already know. Again, if you just said prices fall in marginal cost of production, tick. Everybody knows that. We have exponentially rising productivity, tick. Everybody knows that. You can see it all around yourself. Then three. Then prices must fall forever under those two assumptions. What could measure that? And the only thing that could measure that is something that couldn't be manipulated. And so that's what Bitcoin is. And realize, and then if you go to the next step, and you is all currencies over time always find a way to be able to get manipulated, because if you could control a currency, you can get a free tax on all the world's productivity. And up to you, it all aggregates to you. So that's what it looks like, and that's why there's such a, over time, there's so that hidden tax on the world's productivity and take it into few hands. So of course, human nature would say, I'm going to try to do that. So then you just go to the next step. Then you do the work on Bitcoin. You realize how it will stay decentralized and secure. Right. And so when I always say if it stays decentralized and secure, the reason I say if it stays centralized and secure, it's inevitable, is for two reasons.
Okay.
So people will do their own work to understand how it stays decentralized and secure, so they can realize the government's attacking it only make it stronger, right? People attacking it only makes it stronger. And then the other side of that is, for it to not be decentralized and secure, our best interests. People like you, as nodes that control the network, would have to vote against our best interests to be able to capture it. And there's too many nodes to vote against their self-interest to be able to capture it. That's why, so why it stays decentralized and secure is because we're nodes. It's best for all of us.
Yeah,
it's just an honest network. And so now again, you put in thousands of hours. I put in 1,000 hours thinking about this. How would I kill this? What would it look like? And so some of these conversations are very deep in what it looks like, because we're measuring from the new system. This new system, because as a technologist as well, and for somebody who thinks in first principles, I always have to assign some sort of probability of the unknown. But I wouldn't invest all my time in this network and building to the future if I didn't have a high degree of probability that this is the future.
Yeah. Okay. Hold 10 seconds. I'm gonna switch. Okay. Hello? Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is perfect, actually, gateway to ego debt capital. Can you please tell us what is ego debt capital? I know that a bunch of the listeners now would know, but for the ones who do not, can you please tell us, like, what is it? Where did the idea come from? How old is it? And where are we at?
Okay. So I've always been kind of an entrepreneur. That's and created my wealth being creating companies that delivered value. And as I understood Bitcoin, and as I got deeper into Bitcoin, what I realized is I was spending I was like probably many people that you're gonna listeners. I was hedged against what was happening in the world because I owned Bitcoin. But most of my time, if I said, besides my speaking to audiences all over the world, probably 90%, 80% of my time was still helping entrepreneurs in the fiat system and those businesses. So that's where I made kind of wealth, and that's what I was doing. I was on probably at that time 12 different boards and advisory boards and helping entrepreneurs create their success. It's something I loved. I was because I made so many mistakes myself on the way through that I could help entrepreneurs create the vision, what their vision faster. And then I realized I'm a hypocrite. And that was a hard realization, Plamon. It was really because I had to come to the fact that, okay, I know where this world's going, and 80% of my time is in the system that I don't want to work. So how can I tell other people to do this if 100% of my time isn't in the new system and building to the new? So I needed to fix that. I needed to fix moving my time into the system, essentially creating the world I wanted to see for my kids, wanted to see for what the world would look like. So I just moved. So we created Ego Death, myself, Andy, and Nico, to be able to, that was the Ego Death 1. Now Preston and Lynn are joining in our new fund. But we joined that to create a fund that would invest in the best entrepreneurs that were building the ecosystem for the rails of commerce that would flow on top of Bitcoin. So because we thought it was hard, because Bitcoin was hard to understand. It is hard to understand, and people conflate two things. They conflate the asset, essentially the peer-to-peer internet on the bottom, right, or that asset tied to money, or sorry, tied to energy. They conflate that because they see that price going up and down and the works. Because again, price going up and down because they're measuring from price from the existing system. So that's complicated enough. And then they wouldn't realize what was going to be built on top of it. Because now once you had a stable base layer that couldn't be screwed with, now you could build different types of technology on top of that because technology comes in layers, protocols come in layers. So the internet, TCP/IP was the bottom layer in the late 60s by DARPA, but it wasn't until 1989 that HTTP came out that connected web pages. That is essentially, that protocol stack is the backbone of what we're doing right now on this call. That and it came in layers over 30 years. And then it wasn't until 1989 that the whole internet revolution happened. And then entrepreneurs could go build on top of that stack and deliver us things like the iPhone. It takes a bunch of time. And what it says is entrepreneurs in the public can't see what's available on the new layers until entrepreneurs go and take advantage of those layers to build really valuable products that then come later, bring them up. So what I realized is that would happen, and we wanted to help the entrepreneurs build on top of those layers and provide some of the infrastructure to be able to accelerate this entire ecosystem. And a fund called Ego Death to be able to invest in those entrepreneurs, and it's been such an incredible ride. So in the fund, how we think of fiat dollars, essentially we're providing value, and by creating value, increasing the amount of Bitcoin. So the return should be way above the rate of return of Bitcoin if we're right, because those companies are going to be priced in Bitcoin. They would be delivering billions of users on top of this network by making this simpler, and they're priced in Bitcoin. So you just don't, not just the return of what Bitcoin would look like, what it would look like instead. So imagine creating that is rising in value. That's what. So that's where we're investing. And so, but the beautiful thing is, it's just when it took that hypocrisy and it aligned it to my values, and aligned it to, and what ends up happening is the world comes to you, right? What ends up happening is the amount, like if I saw, I cannot believe, I pinch myself, Plamon, that I get to work with the best entrepreneurs on the planet, helping them create their dreams that transition the world to a way more beautiful world faster. It's incredible.
So it's not if I understood correctly, firstly it's a amazing field to invest in, that feels excited, feels just with so much potential, but also it's not like oh my god, what's the word, that you're giving away money. No, it's like this is the best place to put your money in and get a return, because even in Bitcoin denomination it should be a good investment. As we talked with the house, it went from $1 million to 2 million, but in Bitcoin it went from 400 to 50 or whatever it was.
Right. And so few people understand what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And what this means. I can't believe, I literally can't believe, because I was building and investing in the internet days, and when everybody thought the internet was a fad, and Paul Krugman said the internet wouldn't last, and all of the people, I remember what that looked like, and I remember thinking, the smartest people on the planet are inside this network building this. This is going to be really powerful, and I wanted to be a part of it. And so, and I, again, learned tons of lessons through that ride. This is way more powerful than the internet. This is way more powerful. The smartest people on the planet are here, and it's attracting more and more of the smartest people every day, driven to be able to solve problems on this network. It's unreal. I can't believe more people aren't. I can't believe there's not more capital, more venture capital chasing us in this space, that there's not and I think it's because most venture capital is still living in that fiat land, right? And the most capital is up in fiat land, and so they're just, and it's a feedback mechanism, but again, when you see something different than the rest of the world sees, you're either wrong, right, or very right, because it becomes an asymmetric bet.
Yeah.
We see something very different than the rest of the world sees, and so I constantly am testing. Could this be wrong? Could this be wrong? How am I wrong? I constantly look at the other side. We're not wrong. This is the best bet on the planet today.
The audience really would like to know your opinion of, you said that a lot of people don't see it, and one name pops up. That, do you think that he sees it now, or is he playing a game, or what is it? The name is What Do You Think? And BlackRock and their ETF and every other ETF. What's going on with these ETFs? And do you think that they will assist for Bitcoin to become like a global store of value, and the thing that pension funds put their money in and so on? Or is there a play of someone trying to either somehow destroy or capture the network?
Yeah, so okay, this is going to be a nuanced answer, because it needs to be a nuanced answer. There is no yes no answer in something like that. I have talked to very senior BlackRock. The entire corporation has pivoted in the last 3 years to understanding, at least as a store of value, not what we're talking about the information layer on top of it and what's coming on top of it, but as least as a store of value, essentially. So they're at, if you said 1 to 10 in Bitcoin, kind of your knowledge and where this goes, but they're probably a 4, right? They're understanding the base level of this is a store of value that's a must against this other system, and the entire organization has pivoted in the last 3 years. I can't tell you there. I can tell you this. I can tell you, forget BlackRock forget anyone. If there's value in being able to capture a market or money, then people will try, right? So it doesn't matter if it was BlackRock, it doesn't matter if it was anybody, people will try. But you can tell by what ends up happening when people try to do that against Bitcoin, because they leverage Bitcoin, and you're adding debt or leverage to something without counterparty risk to the system that is pricing deflation. So when you lever that, eventually you get liquidated. And it doesn't matter, sometimes you rise way up in price and then you get liquidated, like FTX. The only way to liquidate is sell other people's Bitcoin, right? And you pretend that you're not liquidated. But this happens over and over and over again in Bitcoin. And every time these companies get liquidated, it broadens distribution to more self-custody. So I can guarantee you, it doesn't matter who, these games will continue to be played against Bitcoin. And I can guarantee you that if it stays decentralized and secure, that those games will get liquidated. And people that play those games on those platforms will also get liquidated, unfortunately, right? So that's why not your keys, not your coin, hold in a hard wallet, and many more people in Bitcoin, as they go from 3, 4, 5 to 10, understanding what Bitcoin is, they would never hold on an exchange. Right? Yeah. They would never hold on an exchange. And as that it stays, and so more and more people are going to learn that lesson the hard way, and more people are going to take advantage at different levels to try to game the system. It's just the way the market will play out. And then so what BlackRock does is it brings institutional capital onto this, and brings a whole bunch more awareness. And that is a path to be able to accelerate this. But now ask yourself, why does BlackRock today have so much money? And why does BlackRock today kind of so much control in the existing financial system? And they have that control because most people are stuck. Like, the money they're controlling isn't their money. It's pension funds or other people's LPs. Is an aggregation of your money, right? So it's our money that they manage. Why do they manage it? Because in the existing system today, that people are chasing an inflationary, people are saying, I need to trust somebody with inside baseball, right? That knows how to make me something more than the inflation rate. And the only way that they could do it needs to be right at the top. They need to be interconnected to the system and everything else, so they don't lose my money. And so more and more money chases that, making them bigger and bigger and bigger, and seemingly more powerful. That same money right now could self-custody Bitcoin without paying a fee to BlackRock. Right now. Will they right away? No. But over time, the shape of the industry will move to the honest network, because of the incentives are so different from the bad incentives that run our existing system to the proper incentives that run the new. And so when I watch what happens in Bitcoin space and people taking sides of this, and everybody wants them on for price to go up, and then everybody says the big evil empire will go and co-opt it. They might try, they won't be able to. And if they think it's a big evil empire, it's just a system built around incentives. It's just a bunch of people trying to make more money for other people trying to make more money in a system based on bad incentives. That's all it is. And when the incentives change, people change. Yeah. And so those types of power differentials today, when I said what people do is they take the baggage from the system they're in onto the new system, that's what's happening. So people are imposing, they're thinking that BlackRock is always going to be this big, or the US government is always going to be this big, or their particular is always going to be this big. And it can't be on the new system. The new system changes the rules.
Okay. Do you have a I'm not sure if you, I'll put like questions like that, but it's about the depth of US and the situation now it is, in Israel that started just a week or two ago. So about US and their debt. So Greg Foss and Warvish, James Warvish, what was his name?
Yeah.
Again? James
Warvish.
Yeah. So they both explain how in the past 1 year the servicing the debt went from 500 billion to 1 trillion, and then everything else unchanged. We just keep the interest rates. We don't take on new debt. Just keep the current one. In the next 12 months, the interest payment is gonna go from 1 trillion to 2 trillion, and they therefore, US meaning, have to either lower the interest rates, either start paying new debt to getting new debt to pay the old one, or they have to really start cutting out expenses, like regardless what it's gonna be, like your social security or healthcare or whatever, right? So do you have a view on this, like in the next 12-24 months, what's the most plausible scenario, like what's gonna happen? And the second question, I'm putting it down right now just so I don't forget, like with the whole situation, we had a war starting in Ukraine for whatever reason, and then a year and a half later, there is something happened in Israel where like my personal thoughts in just a short span as possible is that if you have these people that want to do something, they must think at least 1 to 3 moves in advance. So it's not like, oh, they're just savages that want to kill innocent people or whatever, and then you have a bunch of weaponry that is being used there. So to me personally, it's a very important questions like who supplied them, who produced them, were they bought, were they given, and so on. And I feel like there is so much news titles popping up that do not satisfy the important for me questions on the whole situation there.
Yeah. So, Pламен, you know from my book, like I wrote about trade wars, currency wars, real wars, right? And then I dedicated an entire chapter to us versus them, right? And so all of the things that I wrote about are coming true, right? Everything that I wrote about are coming true, which you'd have to predict they would come true from a system that's already insolvent. The system's insolvent. The only way to make it solvent is to get people to believe it's still solvent while you create a bigger narrative to get them to believe that narrative. Now, again, I wish I didn't have to say that, but what type of narrative starts to cause you to say, oh my God, right? I have to do this because those people are killing me, right? Or those people are, those are the types of narratives that drive public awareness into something that allows a system to get away with stealing wages because people will give it more power. Now, this is our history. Human history is filled with this, right? It's what happens. That's why I wrote. What we're talking about right now is why I wrote the book. I knew it would happen. I knew my kids would grow up in if that happened. It's also why I'm spending all of my time accelerating an alternative path before it's too late. All of these things are absolute guarantees, because how do you get elected in a system like that steals money? So if you just looked in the mirror and you just said, we live in a system that steals money at an ever increasing rate, right? It's a dishonest ledger. Who would win, who would lose out of that system? And how would you keep power? Right? Because what I just said, there is no disagreement from anyone in the world on what I just said. It's a dishonest ledger. Most people don't know what it is, but if you know what it's a dishonest ledger that has to steal money. So why 2% at first? Because 2%, if somebody walked into your house and stole 2% of your belongings over the entire course of a year, you wouldn't notice, right? And then 2% the next year, you wouldn't notice. You'd be a frog boiling in a pot and you wouldn't see the next things. But as 2% turns into 5%, 10%, everything else, you start to notice, where did my things go? but you can't put your finger on it because it's the system you're measuring everything else by. It's the monetary, so it's just based on theft. And so to keep that theft, because it impoverishes people, it puts them in pain. Those people can't even think kind of logically. It's easier to run a narrative. And how would you get elected? First, you look around the world, signposts everywhere. How do you get elected? First, you have to create a division within your own country. It's that person's fault. It's that group of people's fault, right? And we're gonna fix this, but with no way to fix it, right? With no way to, essentially, we're going to collect the theft up into our hands and transfer it to people who vote for us, right? That's what that's what it looks like. So as you gain enough power in your own country to be able to do that, the only way to stay elected, because then the population looks at you and says, nothing's changed. This looks exactly the same. It's just getting worse. So how you stay elected, you have to create a bigger enemy. You have to. And that's what and that's what we're seeing all around the world. And so these things are a function of currency being manipulated. But most people don't realize they're a function of currency being manipulated, and all of the different proxy wars and the different false flag attacks and the different misinformation and everything you're seeing through the existing media landscape is all tainted with that. But you'd be looking, but that's why I give it no attention. I have empathy for the people stuck in it. I have massive empathy on both sides of these different relationships. I cannot believe people are doing this. But I don't let my attention go there. I don't get, because then I'll get captured too. Because the only way the existing system keeps going is if more people give it more power, right? Use a simple example. You grab 100,000 people and you march against your country, and people break windows and light fires and burn down cars and everything else. And then they go home. Where's money come to clean up the streets? They print more of it, right? They hire more security. So all of those people are actually making the system stronger with their actions. And all of those 100,000 people, if they just walked across the bridge to the new system, would make the new system stronger and the existing system weaker as a byproduct. And so when I watch what people's actions, I'm not surprised. For me, I give it no strength at all. I don't let it hijack my mind. I have more important things to do in building the new system so more people can walk across the bridge.
Okay, understand. Exactly about people going on violent protests or whatever you call them, and I was thinking that just like in the past 1 year, there was a bunch of protests all around the world, and I saw people, like let's say breaking cars and breaking windows, and I was thinking, why are you doing this? Like, this is your neighbor. Like it might be not your house exactly, but someone else's, and then energy must be put in to repair all of this, and you're achieving nothing, literally nothing. Sending a message, really, is this the best way to send a message? And people feel that they're like, the game is rigged, something's not right, and they don't know how to fight it.
That's why I don't even watch it anymore. I don't even. So when you ask me about Janet Yellen or any of these events, I'm just completely not that I don't have empathy. I know why people do it. Just the same reason that it's capturing your attention. Exactly the same reason. Because if you're driving down the street and you see a crazy, let's use a car crash.
Yeah.
You slow down. Right. The more outrageous something is, the more it captures your attention, and the more you're making it drive forward. So it's not what everybody else is doing; it's what you're doing. And so you could easily just tune your energy and just say, let's say you had 100 utiles of energy a day, and ask yourself, how much of your day is captured by the existing system and the negative in the existing system versus putting it into the new system. And I would imagine in your life, it's probably even still, even though all the things you're doing in Bitcoin, it's still probably 50-50.
Yeah.
Maybe even 30-70 in favor of the existing system, because and so when you ask other people why they're doing it, you can see why they're doing it. And then if a bomb came over and landed on my kids or something, maybe I would give it all the attention, right? So you can see how it just feeds and feeds and feeds, and it steals all of our attention. All you need to do, every single person, just move more of your attention to the world you want to create. You'll feel better about the world. You'll feel better every day, because you know this. I traveled with you on this. I've traveled so many countries of this world. I've met so many beautiful people. 99% of the planet, more than that, are just incredible people wanting the same things as I do. Great life for their family and everything else. So when you actually see what the real world looks like, if you're not listening to this attention grabbing nonsense, and you're building with those people around the world, it's going to turn. It's going to be ugly on the way through. But each of us has a role in transitioning that faster. And hope beats fear.
Hope beats fear. Nice.
hope over the long run. Fear is a very powerful motivator in your life. And just look around yourself, and you said, if somebody lives in fear all the time, they can't see hope.
Yeah.
Right? They're stuck in fear. They can't actually see what we're talking about right now. But when you live in hope and you see all of the other things, why it's such a more powerful, longer term thing is because hope connects us. Right. Hope is to a high. It's inspirational. It connects all humans, and they can see past what they're in. If it didn't look like that, by the way, humanity would have died off a long time ago. But people get stuck. And so that's why if you're not getting stuck with them, if you're tuning that out and talking about the hope, more people will walk across the bridge.
Yep. Okay. Can you please tell us a bit more just about the projects of that Igudet is working with?
Yeah. So we're in FEDI, right? And
just for
FEDI,
the people who don't know what FEDI is, can you just say in a few words? It's
hard.
Obi, what was his name? Obi, or what was it?
Obi Nasara.
Obi, yeah. He took 2 hours. 2 hours. He was explaining to me how Fediment works and what is it exactly. And he was saying that I quite quickly understand what he's saying, because I already have a bunch of knowledge from before that, and this why for him it was fun to continue for the next step. But he was like, I got it in 2 hours. A bunch of people they need, let's say, 2 days in order to completely understand what he's talking about.
Yeah, and that's why I think you look at Fediment as a protocol, as part of Bitcoin ecosystem. So what they would do is Chamonix Cash, the problem with Chamonix Cash, kind of on top, is it always was it would centralize. So it was massively privacy protection, but it would centralize. So what they did is they took Chamonix Cash, which is almost a cryptographer's dream as far as security and safety, and they tied it into multi-custody. Effectively, I'm simplifying, but multi-custody on Bitcoin. What that means is you could have guardians that would. So the way that multi-sig works on Bitcoin, where I could have 3 of 5 key holders. That any 3 of 5 of those could unlock my Bitcoin, right? They tied that into Chamonix Cash and on Fediment. What that meant is now what I could have my family as my federation. So my federation, my individual family, instead of having kind of a cold wallet and everything else, and what they realized kind of from a high level is people simplified. They didn't want to hold their own keys, or everyone should hold their own keys in self-custody, but a lot of people didn't, and they left vulnerabilities by trusting exchanges. And so they realized that there was a mid-solution, different types of solution through technology that they could enable, almost similar as I do, because at the bottom of multi-sig, I would have 5 people around the world that would hold the individual different codes of mine. And then I could call 3 of those 5 people anywhere and have my Bitcoin anywhere. So they created a solution kind of on top of Fediment and Chapman eCash that it took advantage of that to be able to provide shared custody, but custody with trusted guardians, let's say. But the power in that idea means that inside these federations, that I could have a federation here and people in North Korea completely private, including private encrypted chat that isn't centralized. It's on my that I'm one of the if I was one of the guardians, that nobody would even know I'm kind of the guardian, so they'd have to find my node and guardian. I couldn't see the messages either, but I could only see the messages that were for inside there for me. So completely encrypted, no centralization of chat either, and money and works. And what that would mean in North Korea or somewhere like that is the government would have I could move money to my family there, and then the government of North Korea couldn't find me, nor the family. And that means that they could delete their app off their phone, and the next day put it back on and have their money. And so this would be a network of networks, that there would be thousands, millions of these networks that could all trade with each other on top of this completely in a private way, private encrypted way that would be unstoppable as this network emerged. Besides that, it allows, as that grows, it allows almost a federated operating system when you think about on top of it. So today your operating system, let's say you're an Apple. That means the apps within Apple charges a 30% fee to those apps, and they can take them on and off and everything else. But in this model, people building apps to be able to provide value inside that ecosystem, nobody can turn on and off. Only the guardians can decide for their federation which ones they want to have. And Fedi doesn't have to charge anything. They don't have to charge anything. They don't have to charge a 30% rate. So you could create, on top of this, it lets the technology on top of this, an entire world of entrepreneurs going and building value on top of this, to be able to move with an audience growing on top of it that's protecting that audience. So really, really powerful idea, and it'll launch this year. It'll launch in kind of a beta version this year, but it's already been they've already been testing it across various federations across different human rights groups and everything else. Is crazy powerful.
Awesome. Okay, so this is Fediment. Let's go around the circle.
Let me just double check on my timing. Here, just give me 1 sec. Okay, no, I got a little bit, about 15 more minutes. Is that okay? Okay. So we're in Breeze as well, and so Breeze, think about it as a non-custodial Lightning wallet that allows. So in other words, in that you could actually gain. It's not yield, but you could provide liquidity to the Breeze network and get fees from the Breeze network in a non-custodial way. So today, it's when I say it's not yield, is Lightning through the millions of different transactions get tiny little fees that roll up to the different nodes. And Breeze has built an SDK that allows anybody to build on top of Breeze to be able to simplify, instead of having a whole bunch of walled gardens inside. So so an app doesn't talk to a different app, and one wallet doesn't talk to. They've allowed it to simplify all of the hard technology challenge back end so software developers can build onto this and immediately offer non-custodial to their users. And then as a byproduct of that, you can actually, so different a Lightning service provider, they become that as well as a byproduct, that you can actually create yield or fees, a bunch of fees. And I think that what they're seeing right now, this will change all the time as the market changes, but between 3 and 5% per annum fees on your own liquidity and you hold the keys, so nobody can take your so you think now what's happening is a fee market is emerging. It looks like that I think what will happen in time is the risk-free rate on the new system will be these fees as people add more and more liquidity. And now you can add liquidity to the Lightning network and hold your own keys and be not uncustodial. So very, very powerful, very powerful idea, because now I think Relay just implemented this for their entire user base. They just did this in Lugano, and it took Relay, I think, a week to build on top of this, and a complete functionality, Lightning, Rails, liquidity, the works, to offer all of their users non-custodial wallets in a week because of this SDK. So that, and now those are all interoperable with other things into the ecosystem. So again, very, very powerful early stages of what's happening, but it's growing very fast. Lots of people are using this SDK. What else? Synoda. Synoda essentially uses Lightning to be able to allow energy companies to price in real time, final settlement in real time. So if you think about an energy company is really a distribution company, a distribution of energy, selling watts, joules. And they have to be able to do that, they need a balance sheet, and they sell energy today and they get paid for energy sometimes 60 or 90 days later, and then some companies don't pay them. So energy companies really want Bitcoin miners, because Bitcoin miners balance the load. But the bad thing about Bitcoin miners is sometimes those Bitcoin miners leverage their balance sheets and go broke and don't pay the energy companies. So Synoda started with Bitcoin miners, and they started and energy companies, and they said, you have the Bitcoin, you can pay every day, every watt, right? You could say every minute, every second and so it became an instant settlement network that removed all of the cost of capital, and made the worst credit customer the best credit customer. And so when we were first modeling this out, we assumed Synoda would by this time have one pilot, because energy companies are notoriously slow. They move really slowly. And so when we modeled this out last year, when we made the investment, we thought they would have one contract or one pilot, and then next year one contract. Synoda already has 5 contracts that have skipped the pilot stage or gone quickly through the pilot stage, and 5 contracts. And so because what ends up happening is once the energy company realizes, wait, I just turned my worst customer into my best customer, and I now don't have the cost of capital across my balance sheet, across everything. Now I'm going to enable this in other customers as well and save more money. So again, really, really powerful. And what it does through that process is adds more Lightning liquidity, right? It adds more people utilizing Lightning and more liquidity in the network.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying is we see everything. I think we've seen 600 or 700 companies, and what's happening in this ecosystem that people just aren't aware of and how fast it's moving. It's tremendously exciting.
We have a last question which is not Bitcoin related. Firstly, I must say, because you don't see the chat of the stream, but there was like so many people just thanking you for the book and just expressing how grateful you are to you for your time and just everything that you're doing in the space. But that aside, last question is health related actually. So I'm gonna, because there are a few and they're scattered across different questions, I'm gonna read one of them and just add some additional small pieces. So Nikolai asks, what routine does he have to stay in sharp state of mind, if any? What does he think about fiat food, grains, fake meat, cetos, etc., and how he spends his time most of the day? And a bit later in different questions, there is like this, I don't know how it translates exactly in English, but something like the health of the spirit and body, something like that. And just in general, what health advice do you have, or what health routines do you have? And do you meditate? I guess is kind of relevant question to all of this. And in general, if you have a routine throughout the day, what is it?
I don't have a routine.
And how do you sharpen your mind if you don't watch the CNBC news?
Yeah, so I spend more time feeding my mind with positive thoughts and not watching CNBC news. But the same thing. So all these systems are this. By the way, all of these systems, including fiat food and the medical system, it's actually all the same, and it's all for the same reasons. Regulation to protect you. So you've probably heard me say many times, regulation to protect your money, protect you from losing your money, on top of a system designed to steal your money, is not very logical, right? So you know the regulation and what that would do to enable them to steal your money would be exactly opposite. You could say the exact same thing, and what ends up happening in our food systems and our medical systems is regulation protects the monopoly. That's why they get bigger. It doesn't. The regulation isn't for you. It looks like it's for you, because the fear paralyzes you to be able to allow the regulation which protects the monopoly. And these are all, so you have to, by understanding money, you also understand that some of these things, and I'm not saying they're bad people, it's just the way the system looks, and all of the people inside there will tell themselves they're doing good things because they don't, let's use Monsanto and crops, and wheat crops fail because you don't put Roundup on them. So they can make a call to regulators and say, well, we can't let people starve. And they think that they're doing the right thing without seeing the unintended consequences of that in our bodies and what ends up happening through that. So I've connected the dots to all of these things. And then I think in the food system, so I would just take 3 books, take 3 or 5 what I do in any subject. I look at the 3 or 5 top 5 books, and I look at all the reviews, good and bad, and different things, and any subject I want to go deep on, points of views in that. And so in the food system, I give one to Plamon before. Read Why We Get Sick. Read Glucose Revolution as a couple. There's lots more, but just read those. I exercise just about every day. I would say most people think, because they look at all of kind of the output that happens, and they think how busy I must be, and how many things must be swamped, super busy. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels like I have an abundance of time, but I spend a lot of time. I spend time making sure that I spend the time feeding that back. So I'll spend time with anybody, but Plamon, you and I are friends, right? We're friends. So it happens because I open the door and I almost let anybody in, but then I just watch. How does that person act? How does that, what does that look like? And I aggregate people essentially in my life that feedback and make that life better. And when you do that, you're surrounded by a bunch of incredible people that you essentially stand on the shoulders of. You learn from, you teach them back and forth, and it feels abundant. So I've an immense amount of time. I do meditate every day. I think that's helpful. And I probably eat a lot better than I used to as I started to understand what fiat food was doing to us.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, your pro tips on staying healthy and the books. I've written them down earlier. I'll definitely, I usually listen to audiobooks. I'll post the links to the audiobooks in the Discord channel, and also most probably as a comment under the video, so people can find the books easily. I don't know if they will be translated in Bulgarian language, but if they're large enough, hopefully they will be. Again, just
the other thing quickly, Plamon.
Yeah.
If people went to my website at jeffbooth.ca, and the reason I say that not is to sell my website is the two things.
Yeah.
There's too many people impersonating me, and unless my social media credentials are on that website, it's not me. Okay. So I'll always update that website. So I spend more time on Nostr these days than anything else. But look at my pub key there. And then secondly, I keep it's not updated all the time, but I keep a list of top books that I've read, and there's probably 500 to 800 books on the website that are good starting places on different topics.
Okay. Awesome. We have this saying in Bulgaria that we use quite frequently. It's something along the lines of I feel like I'm with the right crowd. Meaning when you're surrounded with people that you have a similar mindset, and you see them that they're being positive, they're being hopeful, and they don't have the fiat disease, I would call it even. You feel like, together you can just go together over the bridge, go on to the other side, and pull as many people as possible with you. Thank you so much for your time. And you mentioned Alex Goldstein.
Yeah, Gladstein. I'll make the intro right after this.
I'm sure that a lot of the audience would be really happy if he also visits us for a conversation. I know that he's extremely knowledgeable, just in general, on history of Bitcoin, history of money, just everything, like Bitcoin and a wider Bitcoin topic related. So we'll have a blast if you can have him on the show.
No problem. I'm sure he will.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeff. And again, give please my best to your family.
I will. Thanks, Plamon.
Thank you.
Great seeing you. Bye.